Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Can you hear me well? Please give me the signal.
Yes, we can
All
hear
right,
you
thank you.
clearly.
Thank you very much. Uh, can we start right now, or should we wait for some students to come? A lot of students are absent today. Now, just 18 students join the class. Okay, so this is also the last lecture before the TED holiday. All right. Last week, just a moment, some students are joining the class. All right. Last week, I introduced to you the definition of culture, some aspects of cultures, the components of culture. And today, let's just summarize. As you see, culture is very important because it shapes how we see the world. Our characteristics, our personalities is influenced by our culture. So culture shapes how we see the world. Can you give me some examples of how culture shaped how you see the world? You just compare the Vietnamese culture or and American cultures or other cultures. Can someone point out the differences to show that culture shapes how we see the world, our perspectives? For example, we may have the different concept of success. Um, all right, we have the different concept of success. If we compare it to the Americans' concept of success. All right. So who volunteers to show me, to give me the evidence of how culture shapes the way we see the world? Khoa, please. You raise your hand, Mr. Khoa.
Yes.
All right,
Uh,
please.
for example, in Vietnamese or ASEAN culture, the successful son or daughter, that means that person have a high position in their future career, or they have to be rich. But maybe in the Western culture, the successful daughter or son is just they need uh, be themselves have a useful they have to be a useful person that donate in the community, then they can have the community. That is the successful person. Yeah, that is the difference. Yeah.
To some extent, I agree with you. All right, when you talk about reputation, all right, that is a concept of reputation in Western countries. You mean if we are helpful, we are useful, right, to the community, then that person will be respected. All right, so that is about reputation. All right, about fame, reputation, and in Vietnam, to uh, to be famous or to have a good reputation, that person should be in a high position. Uh, that's what you mean, right? Let's say I just agree with you, just a little bit because, in fact, in America, as I know, the one of the values in America is materialism. That means people also respect wealth, all right? Because um, if we are rich in the United States, we will gain respect, all right? But of course, people there they don't care much about education, about family background. Just if you have a good job with, a good job with a lot of money, right? If you can earn much money, you gain respect in America. In Vietnam, probably to gain reputation, to gain respect, one should be in a high status. You mean probably in high position in a company or in the government? All right, it depends. It depends on your perspectives. All right. Actually, we cannot generalize. I know. All right. Thank you very much for your idea. Let's talk about eating or our lifestyle. Like in Vietnam, people enjoy eating delicious food. That means we care much about the taste. However, in other countries, they care much about the nutrition. All right, they think that they should eat for their body to function well, to operate well. But most of the Vietnamese just they eat just to satisfy their taste, right? Just to enjoy the food, and they don't care much about the nutrition. I don't say all, but I just say most. All right. So that is the first thing I would like to summarize. All right, culture shapes how we see the world, how we see ourselves and other people, and of course, culture influences on our behaviors, our way of life. And the second thing I'd like to mention is that everyone has a culture despite the differences. You know, we are all different, but we share the same culture. That is the Vietnamese culture. So to some extent, the Vietnamese have some common characteristics, and we call it the cultural group. Cultural group shares common characteristics, although we are different. As an individual, you may have your own way of life, but anyway, if you live in the society, in that community, you'll be influenced by this culture, right? So we share the common characteristics. To discuss more about culture group, about the common characteristics, let's just practice. All right, by answering this question. Despite the differences, what are some things that everyone in this class has in common? So in this class, when I talk about this class, I want to say the cultural group, you know, any group of people who share common characteristic, we will say the word cultural group. So first, let's start with this small group, right? The cultural group for, sorry, in this class, right? It is considered as a cultural group. So can you think of some common characteristics of all the students in our class? And if possible, just think of the reason why they think and act the way they do. That is, we try to explain the behaviors. By doing this, whenever you work in a new company, whenever you visit a new country, you would try to find out a common characteristics, and in this way we can tolerate their behaviors, we can understand their behaviors. All right, so who volunteers to talk about the common characteristics of the students in this class? Don't you think quietness? All right. Most students seem to be quiet. All right. I'm just kidding. So, Như Ngọc, please.
Yes, Miss. I think one characteristic that everyone in this class have is the cooperating spirit. Because we have a lot of exercise and activity in teamwork that requires teamwork, and so to the time we study together, I see that the cooperating spirit is very good.
All right, I see.
And yeah,
Thank you. All right, I agree with you. That is teamwork spirit, because students in this class have to do a lot of group work or presentations together, and because of this, you have the better relationship, right? You have a closer relationship, and you help one another, especially in the exam. Am I right? All right. You help each other, especially in the exam, right? Okay, so Như Ngọc has got the bonus for giving the very good common characteristic. How about Mr. Dũng, please?
Yes, Miss. I think we all has hardworking personalities because, as you know, we still go to work and go to study at the same time. So we need to arrange the time and arrange our effort to go to work and do the assignments to uh, to every subject. And I think another characteristic we are we always looking for something that better. We want to want to be motivating ourselves, and I think it is many people in the class they kind of um, it kind of very open-hearted, and is kind of I think that's the extrovert people because that I think I believe that if someone they like to learn the foreign language, so that they think it's kind of they are sociable and they are always looking for something extroverts. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. All right. I agree with some characteristics that you mentioned. For example, hardworking, perseverance, open-minded. Doesn't mean you are willing to learn new things or open-minded, and then motivating. All right, but when you talk about being introvert or extrovert, I'm afraid how can you say that everyone in this class is extrovert? Uh, you know, that is just their own personality, I'm afraid, because some students say a lot, right? They volunteer to speak in class because they like to show their opinions, their ideas, but most other students just want to keep silent. All right, so it's hard to say that everyone in this class is extrovert. Just that one point. All right, I might disagree with you, but about other characteristic, um, yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, so you get the bonus for sharing your ideas. I'm sorry, who else? I just saw someone raising hand. Okay, no one else. All right. So if we have more time, we may talk about students in our faculty in the EF, or students at the University of Social Science and Humanities, or even you can talk about your family. Of course, your family is your own cultural group. So there are also some common characteristics of all the family members together, right? And even the people from your hometown. Um, all right, who wants to share the common characteristics of the people in your hometown, in your family, or even at this university, if you like to? All right. Does anyone want to talk about your hometown? Well, for example, I was born in the Mekong Delta. Um, all right, and people in that area, they are quite generous. I mean, easygoing. All right, they like to spend much. So that is just the common characteristics of the people in my hometown. Right, they don't care much about future life. They like to spend too much. All right. So Who wants to say something about the people in your hometown? There must be some common characteristics, right? This is about the regional differences in Vietnam. No one? Okay, good. So just go ahead. All right. So Ngân, Quỳnh Ngân.
Yes. I want to talk about my hometown. I was born in Định Quán district, Đồng Nai province. I think that place have a multicultural because in our hometown there are many people from another area of the countries, like from the north, from the central, and from the south. And I want to say that the multicultural in my hometown.
Really, to my understanding, the people in Dong Nai, all right, they originate. I mean, their origins. The origins is from the
Yeah.
north. Most of them, as I know.
Oh, in my hometown is from the north, from the central, like Huế, Đà Nẵng, and
Really.
from the south. Yeah, Mekong Delta also.
So that is just an illusion. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was informed about the people in Dong Nai. All right. Most of them came from the north, but thanks to your information. So actually, if you say that they came from different regions, that is very hard for you to talk about the common characteristics, right? It's not easy, right, to find out the common characteristics. So multicultural groups. Okay, thank you. All right, so now let's come to the second keyword, communication. About communication, let's just look at the history of communication, like when it started. All right. To begin with, you know that our planet is 4.5 billion years old, quite old, right? And the ocean life, I mean, life started in the ocean only around 3 billion years ago. And what about animals' life? Animals existed 500 million years ago. Of course, you don't have to memorize. The last one is the most important. The thing that I want to emphasize, the Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens in Vietnamese, người tinh khôn, right? So only with Homo sapiens, there was communication. So the first act of communication appeared together with the Homo sapiens around 40,000 years ago. All right. So the first act of communication was with the Homo sapiens. And at that time, communication was just in the form of gestures and shouts, just like animals' language. You see, at that time, all right, gestures and shouts in the beginning, and the word communicate. The word communicate came from the word communicare, the Latin word, and the meaning is to transmit or to share. And you see, that is the purpose of communication. The purpose of communication is to transmit ideas, to share information. And this is my question about oral language and written language. Which one came first, oral or written? Just think, oral language and written language. Which came first? All right.
Yes, I think oral language came first.
Can you explain why do you think oral language came first?
Yes, because oral language is the I think it's the
Uh,
relate to sound,
all
gesture,
right.
sound, and oral language. They
You're right.
develop from sound to oral language. I think
I
that.
Yeah, I see what you mean. You know, because oral language or the sounds or our gestures and shouts, they're just like instincts, human instinct. So of course, oral language came first, and written language developed after that. All right, when it becomes more complicated, and there was a need to record information. All right, so written language developed later. About written language, in the beginning, it was in the form of pictographic system, and later on, it evolved into the phonetic system. So pictographic system means that people use pictures to communicate, and later on, there was the evolution into the phonetic system. That means people at this time used letters or characters, letters to represent the meaning, to show the meaning. This is the example of the pictographic system. All right, in Egypt, in the pyramid, all right, people at that time just used pictures to express the meaning. For example, to talk about a fish, they would draw the fish, things like that. All right, so that was the pictographic system. And even Chinese, if you explore the old Chinese, all right, you see this is a kind of pictographic system. At first, all right, to express the word the sun, right? They just they just drew the sun, and later the evolution gradually like this, right? The modern characters, the modern Chinese character. All right, so I think it's very interesting, all right, to just to find out the evolution of the Chinese language, and it can help you to study the language better and more effectively. So that is the kind of pictographic system, all right, from pictographic to phonetic system. So how about communication in the 21st century? You can see there is a big change in the 21st century because people nowadays, people like to communicate through the electronic devices. So with the information technology, there is a big change, a great change in communication. Even when people get together, they still focus on using their electronic devices. Or when the family members are together, friends are together at the restaurant, people also use smartphones or to communicate. So you see, actually nowadays, communication is losing the arts, right? Some people complain about this. They say that there is no act of communication. The acts, like in the past, in your grandparents' times, they used to write letters, like love letters, and people at that time might keep those love letters for a long time, right? But nowadays, people just text to you, right? They send a message, and then they can delete the message after that. So there is a common complaint about communications in the 21st century. There is no arts in the communication. And even during the pandemic, all right, people just talk to the screen, all right. We have no chance to meet people face to face, all right, just like this situation. It's kind of stressful for people, right, to work online, especially to teach and study online like this. So I understand that you are suffering, all right, from working with the computer screen. Okay, so to define communication, it is a two-way process. Yeah, there must be at least two people, all right, a two-way process by which two or more individuals try to exchange meaning. All right. So if they want to exchange ideas or feelings or even symbols, if there is the need, all right, to exchange ideas, feelings, and symbols, there will be communication. To summarize the process of communication, you can see there are the senders and the recipients. The sender, the one who deliver the message, and the recipients, the one who receive the message. And there are two processes, encoding and decoding. All right. Of course, there must be the channel for the communications to happen. For example, we may communicate face to face. That is one channel. Or we may talk on the phone. That is also a channel. Or we may write an email. Right. So there are different channels for us to communicate. And there is also a word below, the word barriers. Barriers, or we say problems. Of course, in this process, there can be barriers, some problems in communication. And now let's find out the barriers, the communication barriers. Can you think of some barriers in communication? What are the problems when we communicate? Think of some problems. What can be the problems in the communication process? There are several barriers. All right.
Yes, I think there's some better example prejudice or background of each other.
Great.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. About the perspectives, the prejudice, the different background. Very good. All right. That must be the barrier between the two speakers when we don't have the same background. All right. When we don't understand each other's culture. So you deserve the second bonus. All right. Enough for you today. Who else think of some more barriers?
Different language.
All right. Different language. Actually, in order to communicate, we should use the same language, the same medium, right? But when you talk about different language, probably, all right, you can say the language competence. All right, language, different level of language competence. If you say like that, I will agree with you. But if you say different language, just imagine two person when they come together and one person speaks Vietnamese, the other person speaks English. Of course, we cannot say that is communication, right? So both of them must speak the same language, and the problem can be the different level of language competence. All right, it's just the way you express. I understand what you want to say, right? Okay, who else? Wing, please.
I think they can be different about age, knowledge, or style. That's all.
All right, Wing, I agree with you. But actually, let's get together all of information you share is about background. All right, and your friends already mentioned about background, different background. When you talk about knowledge, yeah, all right, that is the same background. But I would like to give you the bonus, all right, for clarifying. But the common word is background, knowledge. All right. How about Mr. Dũng, if you want to say?
think there's a lot of communication barriers, but I just want to focus on some mistakes that I used to make. I think that the conversation is it could not be easy when the people they cannot find a common topic to say or how to start a conversation. So that people there tend to be very easy to try to open to start first a conversation. And often um, when one speaker speak, he or she doesn't know how to let the conversation go smoothly or make it go longer, or just talk or something that he or she like. But I think that to choose the proper topic is very important. And I think communication is not just to speak. It's also the time to pause and to listen, and I think people should give their emotion to react, like kind of the emotion and react to the story that your friends say, because it's important to make the conversation is go smoothly, and it's good effective. People can read through each other. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Thank you for your opinion. But yeah, this is a good example of communication barrier. The communication barrier between you and me. All right, it's hard to catch your idea. So one barrier is obfuscation or ambiguity. You try to make things ambiguous, and it's very hard for me to understand you. So I think that is one good example of communication barrier. All right, thank you, Mr. Dũng. All right, a very good example. All right. So now all right, let me just give you some cartoons to show the communication barriers in real life. You can see the two persons here. Yeah, right. The one on the left, the boy, is very open-minded, right? Extrovert, the one who likes to communicate. And now let's just read what the lady is saying. All right. She's quite negative, right? And to continue in the third one, the boy is always positive. That's not a bad answer. All right, try to give the compliments, but just look at what the girl is saying. It's all I've got. Now that it's done, I should go. Bye. So, some people don't enjoy talking. They are introverts, and when they really say something, they are quite negative. All right, quite negative and pessimistic. I guess that in your life, sometimes you may see this person, all right, the person who doesn't enjoy talking. So that must be the barrier, all right, for someone who doesn't want to talk. How can you force them to open their mouth, all right? And whatever they say, that is just negative, all right? The next barrier, one more cartoon. Hilarious, right? It's really funny. In this situation, some people may talk a lot. They are, wordy, right? They talk a lot, but it's meaningless. So after the conversation with those people, you get nothing. Have you ever been in this situation when you just listen to the speaker for several hours and then you get nothing? All right, it's meaningless. I hope it's not my case. All right, I hope that after listening to my lecture and then you get nothing. All right, it's not my case. I hope so. So this is also the barrier, all right, for those who all right, who beat around the bush, right? Who does not get to the main point. All right, for someone who does not get to the point, it's very hard to communicate. And another situation. You may see the same for the same number, but two persons at the two ends may see it differently. So what I want to say is that it's about our perspectives, our background knowledge, our perspectives. If two persons don't share the same perspectives in life, it's very hard for them to communicate. There can be misunderstanding, you see, because they don't share common knowledge. And especially when both of them speak a foreign language, when we have to use another language to communicate, you may say that there can be the inappropriate processing. So they were processed incorrectly. So, usually this comes from the language competence. All right, when we don't understand idioms or jargons, I mean technical terms. All right, so in that situation, there will be communication breakdown because we may not understand the meaning, the real meaning. Another example in communication, in writing, is all about punctuation. Besides words, then speaking, your intonation, your tone of voice can also contribute to the meaning. So about punctuation, look at this like let's eat ranmer and let's eat ranmer. You can see the difference in meaning, right? In the first sentence, so ranmer is the object, all right? So that's why we can say punctuation saves lives. All right, we may kill ranmer if we use the wrong punctuation. I think this is just for fun, all right? To talk about the importance of punctuation in writing. We must be careful when we use punctuation. And one last example of a communication barrier. The very typical situation is when you see a doctor. All right, some people, they try to make the language really ambiguous. It's very hard to understand. Just like in this case, the doctor will say you're going to be fine, and then it was only a mortal wound. That means you cannot survive, all right, mortal. But this is the way the doctors say. So in some situations, people try to make their language ambiguous, hard to understand. So to sum up, all right, let's talk about the communication barriers. First of all, of course, language. When we don't understand the idioms, new words, then there can be communication barrier. Secondly, it's about context. Refers to the situation, the background. When we don't know each other's culture, when we don't know the history, the context, and the third case is about perspectives. When we do not share the common background, all right, the perspective. Number 4, obfuscation. Obfuscations is the case of the doctor. All right, he tries to make the language ambiguous. It's hard to understand. So we use the word obfuscation. There are some situations that people make their language vague or ambiguous. And finally, the barrier comes from distraction. For example, when you are learning online, you may think about something else, or you are doing something else while you are learning. All right, so that is a kind of distraction. Of course, it should be a barrier because we cannot fully understand what the other person is saying. To continue, I will talk about the aspects of communication. Yeah, there are several aspects of communication. First of all, or we can say categories or aspects or categories of communication. The first category is spoken or verbal communication. And you can find spoken or verbal communication when you communicate face to face. All right, when we use words to communicate, or when we have a talk on the telephone, listen, or when we listen to radio, watch television or other media. So that can be spoken and verbal communication. The second aspect is nonverbal communication. Can someone give me the example of nonverbal communication? This is easy, right? What I considered is nonverbal communication. Let me ask Thiện, please. Tô Hàng Thiện, can you give me an example of nonverbal communication? Are you listening to me? Tô Hàng Thiện, do you have any idea about nonverbal communication? I think this is easy to get the bonus. So, Đoàn nữ, yes, please.
Yes, ma'am. I think nonverbal communication is like you're sending a letter by email or by the other app such as Facebook or Yellow.
I'm sorry. All right. That's not the meaning of nonverbal communication. Probably you talk about written communication. All right. So how about Ying?
I think nonverbal communication, such as eye contact, facial expressions, gestures, and body language.
Very good. You deserve the bonus. Eye contact, gesture. All right. The pronunciation of those words. What else? Can you think of something else? Ngân? All right. I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, I have some idea with Miss Ying.
Can you add one more? Still, one or two more. Cannot think of. All right, thank you.
Yes.
Hạnh, please.
I would like to add the sign language for people who cannot communicate verbally.
Thank you, but it belongs to another aspect, the fourth aspect. All right, let me show you, okay? So in terms of non-verbal communication, let's say body language, voice, personal space. All right, you forgot to mention space. Actually, personal space says something about your culture. All right, like Americans, they like to stay far apart when they speak, and the farther the distance, the farther the relationship. All right, actually, it says something about the speaker's relationship, personal space. And also dress, I mean appearance, all right, and even the smell, the scent or the smell of someone can be a kind of non-verbal communication, all right. We may say something about that personality, all right, thanks to the smell, all right. I'm not kidding, okay, that's true. How about Khoa? You raise your hand.
Okay, I think one of the most important is that's a touch, just like a warm hug or shake hand. That's it. May we call it non-verbal communication?
Yeah, handshake, yeah,
Handshake.
touching. You're
Touch.
right. You're right. Non-verbal communication. All right, touching. So the word body language. In fact, this is very general. All right, body language, handshake, yeah, touch, hug, all of them. So and quite right, the bonus for you, all right, for adding more details about touching. Yeah, very good. According to scientists, they say that body language, tone of voice contributes to 90%, about 90% of all the meaning of your message. And the rest 10% is for the words that you communicate. So you see how important it is, right, for nonverbal communication. Your body language says a lot about yourself, and also your tone of voice also carries a meaning. That is according to the scientists. All right. The third aspect of communication is written communication. Someone else already mentioned writing an email, writing on Facebook, for example. That is a kind of written communication. Letters, emails, books, magazines, the internet, and other media. And finally, visualizations. All right. So the last type is visualizations. Like when you text someone, you don't say a word. But you just send a picture or something like an emoji, right? Pictures, maybe a shape of the heart, right? To say something, all right, that is very meaningful. So about visualizations, you can use graphs, charts, maps, logos, and other icons, other sign language. Finally, intercultural communication. So now let's get to the last keyword, intercultural communication. First, definitions. There are several definitions, but according to Craig Story is the author of your main textbook, the coursework, all right, the course book, sorry, Craig Story. Craig Story thinks that intercultural communication is a field of study. That's right. It is a field of study. So you have to study it, all right? Because, he's the author of your textbook. So he says it's a field of study. So we can study it, right? That examines effective ways for people from different cultural backgrounds to communicate with each other. So this subject is very useful for language learner because it helps you to find a good way to communicate with foreigners. But then let's explore other definitions. For example, Russell Ahrens thinks of a process. All right, in this definition, you can see the process, the sending and receiving of messages across languages and cultures. That means there must be the differences in language and the differences in culture, or for the two persons to communicate. So when there is that process, we call it intercultural communication. And the last definition, I prefer this one because it is very clear by mentioning elements of intercultural communication. So with this definition, you can also see the elements. Think to me the definition. The first element, there must be at least two people or two groups of people, for the communications to happen. And these two people must come from different cultures, because if they come from the same culture, you cannot say intercultural. All right. So with the word intercultural, there must be the difference in cultures. And then they are in interaction. Of course, they must communicate. All right. They must be in the interaction. And finally, who negotiate common meaning. That is, both of them try to interpret the meaning. Yeah, both of them are willing to communicate. All right. So there are four elements in Ting To Me's definition. And I also prefer this one. It's quite clear, right, to understand the meaning of the word intercultural communication. There are some other terms that we need to distinguish. We have to distinguish between cross-cultural and intercultural communication. They are similar, of course, they are similar and also confusing, but they are not the same. All right. For the term cross-cultural communication, all right, with this, all right, with this word cross-cultural, all right, we just want to compare the communication styles across cultures. Of course, the purpose is also to compare, to show the differences in communication across cultures. And how about intercultural communication? Intercultural communication is different because they show you, it shows you the reality, what really happens when people come together, when they really interact, when they really communicate. So intercultural communication focuses on the reality, on the real thing, or on what really happens. Can you see that difference? All right, with cross-cultural communication, people just think, all right, it's all about theory. And with intercultural communication, it's about the practice, the reality. And then international communication. The word international, international, that means we talk about the different cultures, the different languages. But if we use the word international communication, we just ignore the cultural differences. We suppose that if everyone knows the language, they can communicate. They can communicate successfully. All right, we do not care about the different cultures. So that is the meaning for international communication. All right, that means we ignore the cultural differences. And finally, intercultural communication. With the word inter, you know the meaning inter, all right? So here, it is a communication between at least two people, but they come from the same culture, all right? Inter, different cultures, but inter, the same culture. Anyway, if you don't understand, it's not very important. I just want to clarify the meanings of all the related words in case you see them. All right, you can find out the differences, but it will not be in your exam. All right, this is just for the extra information I would like you to know. And now let's come to the final task about the word hello in different languages. Actually, you are supposed to work in group, but then it's very hard for you to study online. So I would like someone to volunteer individually at least five languages. The first raise of hand. At least 5 languages here. Who volunteers? Ngân, please. Which one? With Ngân?
Oh, yes. I can say hello in Hola, la Spanish. Ni hao. Chinese.
I'm sorry.
Hola.
I'm sorry, Ngân, but these languages, in these countries,
in the stream.
Yes.
Okay. Japanese. Konnichiwa.
Good.
Korean. 감사합니다.
Yes.
French. Bonjour.
Yes.
Italy. Salve.
Another way of reading in Italy.
Italy. No. Ciao.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Similar to the Vietnamese reading. You see ciao, all right? Just similar. Japanese, Korean,
Korean. Spanish.
Spanish already, Italian.
Italian. One more. Thailand. Let me remember Thailand. Sawadika.
Sawadika is for boys or girls.
Sawadika. Sawadika.
All right, it depends. It depends on whether you read a woman or a man,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
car is for man or woman.
Let me remember. Car for men and car for women.
Oh, really? All right. The other way around. Thank you anyway. Someone is helping you, right? All right. Because I can hear the sound of your neighbor or someone, all right, just by your side. Anyway, you still get the bonus, and
Yeah,
you should,
thank you.
yeah, you should say thanks to the guy who helped you. All right.
Yes.
Okay. So who else? For the rest, other countries. 5 more. 5 more languages. In Khmer, like yeah, the reading in Cambodia, in India. Sorry, in Egypt, the language is all right. Who can? Are you asking Mr. Google? Well, it's hard for you. All right. Actually, the language in Egypt, we say Arabic. All right. In India, the language is Hindi. I'm sorry for the mistake here. All right. The language in India, Hindi. The language in Egypt, Arabic. All right. So to reach someone in Thailand, Sawadika or Sawadkrap, depending on the gender. About Japanese, the Japanese language, most of you just know the phrase konnichiwa, but actually that is a reading in the afternoon. There is the reading in the morning and also in the evening. In Korean, 안녕하세요. Hawaiian, in Hawaii, people greet each other by saying aloha, and the meaning of aloha is love. Very nice, all right? in a country, in a place, and then we just say love when we reach someone. I think it's really nice. And in Laos, sabadi. In French, it's easy. Most of you know the word bonjour or salute. German, in German, the formal way is Guten Tag, formal. Informal, you can say hello. And in Spanish, hola. So you see hello, hola, aloha, a lot of words, a lot of similar words. Italian, the informal way of greeting is ciao, all right, and sound and other ways. In Cambodia, the language Khmer, you can say Jamrip Sur. In India, Namaste. And when you visit someone in Egypt, so the language is Arabic, you would say Salam Alaikum. So the meaning of Salam Alaikum is peace be with you, right? When we reach someone, we also send the wish to someone. So those are the readings in different languages. And now I would like to show you the gestures, the behaviors together with the reading. All right, so there are, different behaviors in reading around the world. For example, in Argentina or in France, when people read even strangers, they just have the kiss on the cheek, probably 2 kisses on the 2 cheeks. All right, so in France, people kiss quite a lot, right? Nearly every day, because when we read someone and then we just kiss. In India, besides saying namaste, they also press their palm together and they put their hands in front of their chest. And for the Jai to express respect to the elderly, they can kneel down and touch the feet of the elderly just to show respect. How about in Thailand, in Cambodia, and also in Laos? All right, there are different terms. The term for the reading in Thailand, the term is why. All right, the why gestures. Because there are strict rules for reading in Thailand, or Sambit in Cambodia and Nopt in Laos. So what are the rules? Depending on the relationship, you just look at the height of their hands and the relationship. The lady on the right is superior, so that's why she can lower her hands, right? The lady on the left, she's just a student or a younger, so you can see the hands must be higher. So depend on the relationship. If you reach the king, your hands must be above your head. All right, things like that. So there are some rules. If you just reach your friends or the inferior, you can lower your hands like this. So be careful of the positions of your hands when you are in Thailand, in Cambodia, or in Laos. All right, there must be the right positions for your reading. And how about the Japanese? The Japanese, when they meet each other, by looking at the duration of the bow and the angle of the bow, the relationship. For example, if you are inferior, you must bow longer, all right, and the angle must be smaller. So depending on the relationship, you can see the different ways of bowing. In New Zealand, a tribe New Zealand, people just touch the nose and forehead when they read. And it is very interesting in Tibet. Do you know the behaviors in Tibet? The gestures when people read in Tibet? Yeah, right. It's quite weird. People, when they read, they just stick out their tongue. Why? All right, why do they do this? Because there is a legend, a story about a cruel king who killed a lot of people, and that cruel king had the black tongue. So in Tibet, people just want to check whether you have the black tongue on or not. The black tongue signals the cruelty. All right. So make sure that your tongue is not black when you are in Tibet. All right. It's very interesting. In the Philippines, to show respect, you can get the hands. You can press the hands against your forehead. Malaysia, all right, put your hand on your chest to show respect, love, and respect. In the Middle East, as you know, men can touch and embrace when they read. So never think that they are gays. All right, just their way of life. Right, they can touch and kiss and hug when they read between men. All right. And the Shona in Southern Africa, people clap their hand when they greet. So you can see there are different behaviors around the world. In Micronesia, they even raise their eyebrow when they greet. And in the United States, you see beside the shake hand, beside shaking hand, that is quite formal, quite common. However, there can be fist bump. If the relationship is informal, the friendly relationship. I'd like to show you the fist bump between Donald Trump and Queen Elizabeth II. Actually, Donald Trump, he wants to be informal in all situations. You know his characters, and Obama and his wife as well. So fist bump is also a popular way of greeting in the United States. Beside a fist bump, there can be a high five. Young people like to give the high five for reading. That is also informal, the close relationship. And in Zambia, people just twist the thumb when they read. All right, they twist their thumb. And a Kanuri tribe in Niger, they even shake the fist. This is just like someone who is angry. All right, shaking fist. So finally, one more chance for you to get the bonus by telling me the country, in which country the people express thanks, to say thanks in different countries, or you can say in different languages. You can choose to talk about the country or the language. It's up to you. Just like in India, you can say India, the country. But if you say the language, you will say Hindi. Okay. Volunteers? Of course, the 6 countries for your presentations, and the 2 more countries which are our neighbors. You remember the 6 countries for your presentation? Let me remind you of the 6 countries. Japan, Germany, India, Korea, Mexico, Egypt. All right, and 2 more countries. Wing, please.
Thái Lan, Thái Lan Cocoon.
Yes.
Japan là Japan Arigato.
Yes. Arigato.
Korea Kamsahamnida.
Yes.
China 谢谢
Sorry. Which country?
China
China.
Chinese
Oh well,
China
it's not here.
China
Hình như tôi không có cho nước Trung Quốc ở đây.
là trong speak country
Cô ơi, những cái hình cô cho trên cái slide đó.
dạ
Ủa, vậy học không nãy giờ không theo dõi slide à?
dạ em nhầm dạ em
Rồi cứ tiếp tục đi, không sao đâu.
dạ
Thử cố gắng những cái hình nè.
I
Đăng cơ.
I know two countries in this life. Thank you.
Trên cái slide này là có 6 cái nước mà các bạn sẽ trình bày ha, sẽ thuyết trình đó đúng không? Cộng thêm 2 nước gần mình nữa, hàng xóm của mình nữa ha. Bạn Quyên đã nói được ba nước rồi, chỉ còn 2 nước nữa là được bonus rồi đó nhé. Alright. It's a pity. Probably you know gracias, danke. I think it's easy. Như Ngọc, please.
Yes, Danke from German, and gracias from Italian.
Well, actually, that is not the country for your presentation. Gracias. All right.
Gracias. Gracias for Spain.
Spanish. Yeah, Spanish. But the country is Mexico. Because in Mexico, people speak Spanish. All right. The country for your presentation is Mexico, remember? Okay. So I agree with you. Yes, Spanish. And how about shukran and shukriya and akun? Ngọc, can you continue?
I think Sukriya is from India. I don't know about that. And I don't know about Sukren and Okun.
All right. I'm a little bit confused. I don't know whether I should give you the bonus. All right. I'm sorry. Because my requirement at least 5 countries. Okay, let me show you the answer. Shukriya. Yeah, all right. In India. So the language is Hindi. And Shukran. You may find the similarity between Hindi and Arabic because, in Hindi, people borrow a lot of words from Arabic. That's why you can see similar sounds. Akun, Khmer, to say thanks to the Cambodians. All right, gracious, Mexican, or you can say Spanish. So thank you very much for your participation. And now I think it's time to review. After learning each unit, each topic, you will just do the quiz to review. So last week and this week, we just defined the three words: culture, communication, and intercultural communication. So I'd like you to review on the definitions, on the basics concepts by doing a quiz. If you have the apps Peasy, you just enter the code and play the game. But if you don't have the apps, you can just type joinmyquiz.com and then enter the code, and then you can play the quiz. I give you some time to prepare. And I will give the bonus to the 3 top winners. In order to be a winner, you need to give the correct answer, the exact answer, and you need to do it fast. So the speed also contributes to your success. All right, speed, correct answers, and sometimes there are the icons below your screen. There are some icons for you. If you can make use of those icons, it's easier for you to win. Sometimes you can change the answer. This means you can redeem your answer. Sometimes you can duplicate your grades, your scores. So depending on the icons you have, just make sure that you know how to use it. Đối với Quizy á, thì ngoài cái việc cái kiến thức nó còn có vào cái lệ thuộc vào cái vận may của mình ha. Ví dụ nó có xuất hiện những cái power up, những cái icons á, đôi lúc nó sẽ cho mình chọn câu trả lời lại, tức là redeem answer, hoặc đôi lúc nó sẽ nhân đôi số điểm. Thì ví dụ mình thấy cái câu trả lời đó, cái câu hỏi đó dễ, mình muốn nhân đôi số điểm thì mình sẽ click icon đó. Nói chung là ngoài cái kiến thức về học thuật đó, mình còn phải có những cái kỹ năng khác ha, thì mới thắng được nha. Thì đó là cái cách để trở thành winners cho cái chương trình Quizy. Và như các bạn sẽ tự control cái tốc độ chơi của mình luôn ha. Ví dụ mình làm xong câu nào thì mình cứ tiếp tục qua câu tiếp theo. Làm càng nhanh thì điểm càng cao. Alright, are you ready? Rồi nha, ta bắt đầu ha. Và 3 người đầu tiên thì sẽ được nhận bonus nha. Thật sự đối với cái môn học này á, không có khó, nhưng mà tới hồi đi thi á, nó dễ bị rối lắm, dễ bị lộn lắm nha. Nó nhiều khái niệm lắm. Mới cái tuần 1, tuần 2 thì nó dễ như vậy, chứ những tuần sau thuộc về kiến thức chuyên ngành thì nó khá là confusing. Cho nên các bạn cũng cần phải có cái bonus đó ha. Mình đừng có trên lớp mình cố gắng mình tham gia để mình tích lũy điểm, thì khi thi lỡ mình có chóng mặt á, mình không có làm bài được á, thì mình vẫn còn có điểm bonus để bù qua ha. Alright, let's start everyone. để trả lời cho bạn Ngọc Thu là hỏi lớp đang làm gì đó ha. Thì sau mỗi buổi học á, là chúng ta sẽ có cái phần ôn tập, thì làm quizzes là một cái dạng thi thử. Khi đi thi có thể mình cũng sẽ gặp lại những câu này nha. Đây là cái dạng ôn tập sau khi học bài. Thì nếu các bạn đạt điểm số cao 3 bạn đầu tiên thì cũng được điểm thưởng nhé. Rồi sao Ngọc không tham gia được nhỉ? Tại vì cô có hướng dẫn đó là một là mình download cái app Squeezy xuống, hai là mình không có sẵn cái app đó, thì mình sẽ gõ vô trong cái trang web là joinmysqueeze.com. Thì joinmyquiz.com nó sẽ có nó yêu cầu mình nhập cái mã này vào, thì mình sẽ để cái mã, mình gõ cái mã số vào, tự động mình sẽ được tham gia thôi sẽ được kết nối với chương trình của giáo viên, và mình sẽ có cái câu hỏi để mình tự làm bài. Rồi được chưa Ngọc Thu hiểu không? Nếu mà lỡ hôm nay mình không có kịp làm này thì mình rút kinh nghiệm lần sau ha. Mình download sẵn cái app này nè, Quizzes nè, cái chữ Quizy góc trái nè, thì mình sẽ thao tác nhanh hơn. Tại vì sau mỗi bài học đều có làm bài ôn, đều có ôn tập hết, và cái kiến thức ôn tập này mình sẽ sử dụng cho đến lúc mình thi luôn á. Nếu bạn nào có sẵn cái app thì các bạn sẽ có thể lưu lại được. Mình có thể vào trong cái library, mình xem lại và mình thực tập lại vẫn được ha. Tức là quiz này cho phép bạn làm đi làm lại nhiều lần. Còn nếu như mình không download apps thì hình như là mình khó, mình không có làm lại được nhé, chỉ làm có một lần thôi. Thì tùy theo cái cách các bạn chọn ha. Rồi như vậy là cũng nhiều bạn đã xong rồi đó, gần như là xong hết rồi nha. Còn ai thắc mắc về cái cách tham gia quiz không ạ? Bạn chỉ có mình bạn Ngọc Thu thôi ha. Thôi để lần sau Ngọc Thu tham gia nhé. Các môn khác các bạn có từng làm quiz này chưa? Cô thấy các bạn làm thao tác nhanh gọn quá nè, chắc là đã từng làm rồi đúng không? Không có xa lạ gì với với cái apps này rồi ha. Bây giờ tôi sẽ cho điểm bonus cho những cái bạn có điểm cao nhất nè ha. Bảo Dũng, and then Như Ngọc, và cuối cùng là Quỳnh Ngân. Rồi, 3 bạn đó sẽ có được 3 bonus. Thì cái quy định về điểm thưởng là như thế này. Nếu như các bạn cuối học kỳ đó mà được 5 cái bonus thì cái điểm của bạn sẽ tăng lên là 1 điểm cho kỳ thi giữa kỳ. Cho nên tôi sẽ cộng dồn bonus lại, và nếu điểm giữa kỳ đã đạt được 10 điểm rồi thì cái điểm bonus này sẽ chuyển qua cho cái phần thuyết trình cuối kỳ nhé. Cho nên cái phần bonus là không bao giờ dư đâu nha. Mình cộng đủ cho giữa kỳ thì mình sẽ chuyển qua phần cuối kỳ vậy thôi. Còn nếu năm nay học giỏi quá, tất cả đều 10 hết, còn dư cái bonus á, mà sang năm có gặp lại tôi cũng vẫn trả nợ ha, vẫn giữ lại cái bonus đó nhé. Alright. Okay, let's look at the questions. Tôi sẽ giải thích những câu hỏi mà khó thôi. Xem những câu nào khó đó các bạn làm không có đúng nhiều mới giải thích ha. Những câu để xem sơ qua cái bao nhiêu câu. Ok, các bạn làm khá là tốt ha. Tại vì kiến thức của cái bài đầu tiên nó cũng rất là dễ nhé, không có gì nhầm lẫn hết. Về sau thì nó mới khó. Vậy thì hãy trên 3 câu sai thì tôi sẽ thích nhé. Còn dưới 3 câu thì thôi tôi sẽ cho qua luôn. Câu số 1 đó thì cái định nghĩa của story nói về culture thì ông ta có cái từ như là share assumptions, values and beliefs. Đó là những cái từ chính trong cái định nghĩa ha. Khi mình nói về culture thì nó sẽ có liên quan đến những khái niệm chính như là assumptions, beliefs, values. Đó là những cái keywords trong cái định nghĩa của ông ta. Cho nên cái từ mình chọn ở đây sẽ là values. Đến câu số 3 đó, in societies accepting thì có 3 cái từ chính này. Thì mình xem đây là thuộc về cái value gì, nhờ vào cái ý phía sau đó là workers prefer precise instructions from superiors. Thì đây là những xã hội mà họ quan trọng về hierarchy. Hierarchy tức là theo cái thứ bậc, theo cái tôn ti đó, từ trên xuống dưới đó, hierarchy. Cho nên những người cấp thấp thì thích là những người cấp trên sẽ ra lệnh cho mình, hướng dẫn cụ thể. Thì đó là trong những xã hội mà gọi là accept hierarchy. Về sau này thì cái thuật ngữ đó nó sẽ gọi là high power distance nhé. Cái từ mới sẽ là high power distance, nhưng mà cái từ quen thuộc mà chúng ta biết đó là hierarchy. Còn cái từ egalitarianism, ở đây cái từ egalitarianism nó cũng khá giống như equality thôi, khá là giống, nó cũng gọi là gần như là synonym đó. Tức là bình đẳng ha. Nếu mà một cái xã hội mà quan trọng nhất là bình đẳng, ai cũng như ai, thì lúc đó mới dùng từ egalitarianism. Rồi câu số 4, điền vào chỗ trống thì thông thường là khó, là bởi vì các bạn phải điền đúng cái spelling. Thì trong cái định nghĩa của universal behaviors, mình so sánh giữa universal behaviors, cultural behaviors và personal behaviors. Thì nếu nói về universal behaviors là mình ám chỉ là một cái behaviors đó là gần như là phổ quát, hay là gần như là cho tất cả mọi người. Nó thuộc về human instinct, gần như là thuộc về instinct nhé. Thì lúc đó là gọi là universal, tức là ai cũng làm như vậy hết, ai cũng có cách cư xử giống nhau như vậy hết, thì là universal. Còn cái vế thứ hai này có nghĩa là cultural behaviors, là nó chỉ dành cho một cái cộng đồng nào đó thôi, một cái group of people nào đó thôi. Ví dụ như cái hành động chung của người Việt ha, thì đó gọi là cultural behaviors, tại vì nó chỉ thuộc về một cái cộng đồng nào đó thôi. Rồi câu số 6. Câu số 6 là cũng trở lại với khái niệm behavior thì có 3 loại. Đối với cái người mà đỏ mặt khi mà họ mắc cỡ ha, họ cảm thấy ngượng ngùng, thì đây là một cái nó giống như instinct hay human instinct, một cái phản xạ tự nhiên. Cho nên cái từ mình cần chọn ở đây đó là universal, gần như ai cũng như vậy hết nhé. Câu số 7, hỏi mình cái câu này đúng hay không. Đối với cái nền văn hóa mà tôn trọng tuổi tác đó, thì có phải là người ta sẽ không có dám đuổi việc cái người lớn tuổi, mặc dù là ông ta làm có tệ nữa, người ta cũng không có đuổi người làm việc lâu năm lớn tuổi. Thì cái câu này là true ha. Đối với những xã hội mà respect old age. Tiếp tục về cái định nghĩa của behavior nữa, thì ở đây cái từ sẽ là universal, tại vì nó có nói là is shared among all people. All này tức là tất cả rồi, cho nên cái từ đó phải là universal. Câu 11. Một cái behavior của một ông chủ mà mời nhân viên của mình ăn trưa cùng, thì đó là một cái behavior của cái từ mình chọn đó là egalitarianism. Thì câu này là đúng ha, tức là nói về sự bình đẳng nhé. Câu 12, ta có 2 loại culture khi mình định nghĩa, thì sẽ có surface culture và deep culture. Surface culture là những thứ mình có thể cảm nhận được, có thể thấy được, có thể hiểu được rồi dễ dàng. Thì trong số những cái thứ như là attitudes, beliefs, language, thì nhiên language là được gọi là surface culture, mình có thể thấy rõ nhất. Trong khi đó những cái thuộc về attitudes, về beliefs, notions hay concept thì mình rất là khó tiếp cận nhé, cho nên cái đó gọi là deep culture. Thì cái bài học hôm trước, tuần trước chúng ta có nói về surface và deep culture. Xin lỗi các bạn, cái câu này như nó bị mờ quá ha. Alright. Agreeing with a suggestion you think is wrong is a behavior of, thì cái này nó thuộc về một cái values gọi là saving face, tức là mình nể mặt ai đó ha, cho nên mặc dù mình không đồng ý, mình vẫn giả vờ như mình đồng ý ở một cuộc họp trước đông người, coi như mình đồng ý, thì đó là gọi là saving face nhé. Alright. Câu 15 là điều đúng hết rồi ha. Câu 16 hỏi về food và education là thuộc về lĩnh vực nào, cái lĩnh vực nào của culture. Food and education là nó liên quan đến daily life nhé, daily life, chứ không phải economy hay là government hay history đó nhé. Đúng không? Ăn uống là cái việc hàng ngày, cũng như học hành là cái việc hàng ngày nha, daily life. Rồi Các bạn còn thắc mắc gì nữa không ạ? Trong cái phần quiz này có câu nào mình thấy mình chưa hiểu hay là mình không đồng ý với câu trả lời ha? Please let me know. Alright. Alright. Now one last thing is about the group presentation. I haven't got the list yet, so I'm afraid that I cannot assign the topics to you. Cái hôm trước tôi có nhờ lớp trưởng là cho tôi danh sách các nhóm đó để cho các bạn tự thành lập nhóm đó, nhưng mà chưa có nhận được cái danh sách, cho nên là tôi chưa có phân công cái chủ đề được cho các bạn. Vậy khi nào lớp trưởng gửi dùm cho tôi cái danh sách nhóm nè, thì lúc đó mình bắt đầu làm chuẩn bị cho cái bài presentation được nhé. Khi có topics thì mình bắt đầu chuẩn bị được. Có tất cả là 6 chủ đề đó ha.
Dạ, lớp cuối giờ em gửi câu
Rồi, khi nào lớp trưởng gửi cho tôi thì tôi sẽ assign topics luôn và sẽ gửi lại cho lớp trưởng để lớp trưởng thông báo cho cả lớp nhé, để chúng ta tiến hành làm việc nhóm cho nó sớm. Tại vì thực ra cái môn học này rất là nhanh, chúng ta học được 2 tuần rồi, và chỉ còn 9 tuần nữa là không tới 9 tuần, tại vì học lý thuyết là có 6 tuần thôi nha. Cái phần lý thuyết tôi dạy chỉ 6 tuần, một phần còn lại là các bạn thuyết trình đó, cho nên là nhanh lắm, mới là mình xong 2 tuần rồi đó ha. Rồi sau đó là tới phiên các bạn rồi đó, cho nên mình phải chuẩn bị ngay từ đầu ha, cho sớm. Alright, do you have further questions? Còn bạn nào thắc mắc gì nữa không? Có thể thắc mắc về bài học hoặc là thắc mắc về thi cử cũng được. Còn nếu chúng ta không thắc mắc thì chúng ta có thể nghỉ sớm hôm nay nhé. The last week before the TED holiday. Alright. Any questions? If you have no questions, I wish you all the best for the coming year. Enjoy the TED holiday, everyone, and see you next year after the holiday. Goodbye and good night.